Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the architecture of collaboration. Specifically, we're looking at how we shift from working in these isolated, ego-driven silos to really practicing inclusive co-ownership. Imagine the individual minds on a team like these separate, glowing structural lines, right? When a team is operating at peak performance, those boundaries just melt away. They lock together to form a single, glowing, multidimensional master blueprint. So let's unpack the actual science of how you make that happen.
It's the ultimate workplace question, isn't it? Why do some teams instantly click while others constantly clash? A lot of times we just write it off as, oh, it's a culture fit issue. But honestly, the truth is deeply biological. The hidden costs of operating in these isolated I versus you mindsets are just massive. So today, we're breaking down the literal syntax of high-performance teamwork.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start small, zooming into the microscopic neurology of the individual brain, move into the SCARF model of social behavior, pan out to two-person dynamics, and then finally, look at the macro level of global cloud workspaces. Let's get into it.
All right, pillar number 1, the micro. Before we can build that shared blueprint with anyone else, we really have to understand how our own individual brains chemically process collaboration.
There's this absolutely groundbreaking work from the Neuro Leadership Journal that reveals a central organizing principle of the human brain. Basically, it is constantly scanning the environment to minimize danger and maximize reward. But here is the truly wild part. Your brain actually treats social collaboration exactly like a primary survival need. That's right, interacting with your colleagues literally uses the exact same neural networks as your fundamental need for food and water. Mind-blowing, right?
Because of this survival mechanic, we're basically operating in one of two states. First, there's the approach state. This is your reward state, heavily tied to positive emotions. Your dopamine increases, driving huge engagement, creativity, and deep problem solving. This is where the magic happens. But on the flip side, we have the avoid or threat state. When we perceive a social threat at work, it literally drains your prefrontal cortex of oxygen and glucose. We lose our cognitive resources, we get super defensive, and our focus just shrinks. I mean, you literally cannot collaborate effectively when your brain is convinced it's being chased by a predator.
So to keep our team safely in that highly productive approach state, we need to know what actually triggers these hidden survival mechanisms. And that brings us perfectly to the SCARF model.
SCARF stands for the 5 core domains of human social experience that trigger our brain's threat or reward systems. That's status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Let's just take autonomy for a second. If a leader micromanages, well, they probably think they're just ensuring quality control. But to the employee, that threat triggers the exact same neural network as a physical attack. Public criticism, that absolutely destroys status. Vague expectations, there goes certainty. High-performance teams don't just hope for the best. They actively build psychological safety guardrails to minimize these threats, creating a genuine, open invitation for collaboration.
Okay, so once our brains actually feel safe and those individual structural lines are glowing in a solid approach state, how do we actually get things done together? Let's zoom out a bit to the meso level. Two-person dynamics.
This brings us to a seriously fascinating concept called transactive goal dynamics. Think about an established romantic couple, or one of those highly synchronized work duos. They aren't just working side by side. They actually develop a shared cognitive system. They learn each other's idiosyncratic skills so incredibly well that they intuitively allocate tasks without even needing to speak. It is literally the ultimate shared blueprint in action. Researchers recently put this to the test in such a cool way. They brought pairs of people into a lab. Some were established couples, and others were complete strangers. They showed them 16 very diverse tasks. We're talking everything from mental math to shooting a basketball. Then they asked these pairs to silently divide the work to get the absolute highest combined score.
And wow, the results were incredibly telling. The established partners, the ones who already had that shared blueprint dialed in, absolutely crushed the impromptu strangers. Why? Well, the strangers were operating in those isolated ego silos. They only knew their own strengths. But the established partners, they drew on shared knowledge. They separated the person from the problem, locking their unique skills together for just maximum efficiency.
Now, that unspoken synchronization is beautiful when two people are sitting in a room together. But let's look at the macro level. How do we maintain that transactive intuition and psychological safety when we're suddenly separated by thousands of miles?
Think back to 2020. Almost overnight, roughly 16 million workers abruptly switched to remote work. That massive, sudden shift basically shattered traditional workflows. It created tremendous friction. Those glowing lines of connection we talked about suddenly severed by distance, which massively threatened our sense of relatedness and certainty.
For industries dealing with heavy data like media production, teams hit an absolute brick wall: the upload-download cycle. Before modern cloud tools, remote workers faced this painful, tedious process of either transferring physical hard drives or waiting hours, literally hours, to upload a massive file just so a colleague could download it, make an edit, and upload it all over again. It is a complete collaboration killer. It destroys that seamless workflow we just looked at, replacing it with nothing but frustrating bottlenecks.
The fix really lies in how we design our digital space. Cloud technology acts as the digital equivalent of a shared brain. By centralizing storage and giving us that high-speed, real-time access, cloud platforms completely wipe out the friction of that upload-download cycle. They allow distributed teams to stop wasting their cognitive resources on frustrating logistics and funnel all that energy right back into creative problem solving.
So, let's move to our final pillar. Let's look at how we upgrade the remote workspace and turn all of this science into actionable strategies for modern distributed teams.
To really maximize cloud collaboration, it boils down to these 5 strategies: investing in real-time tools, training teams on digital best practices, fostering open communication, implementing strong security, and automating workflows. By actually integrating these, you build a digital workspace that respects the brain's core needs. Think about it. Real-time tools create certainty. Transparent communication fosters relatedness, and strong security, that keeps the whole team out of a reactive threat state. When your tech stack actively supports human neurology, your team achieves unified speed and unified scale.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a hard look at your own daily workflow. Are your systems and even your communication styles inadvertently triggering survival threats in your colleagues? Or are you actively practicing inclusive co-ownership? Are you designing that glowing, shared blueprint where every individual mind feels safe enough to lock in and absolutely thrive? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today. Keep collaborating, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.